Pat the Rat, Pat Riley, in the NBA Finals once again. My, how New York Knicks fans hate him.
And when you come to an impasse, you got to make a decision as a person. I mean, you either leave or you go on and be embittered because you've accepted something you didn't want.
Is Riley deservedly hated? Or would you do the same thing if you were in his shoes way back when, in 1995? Let's start with some history. Pat Riley was born near Syracuse, New York, in Rome, New York, and raised near Albany, New York, in Schenectady, New York. Which, if you talk to anyone from New York City, it doesn't even count as the same state or location in their eyes. But that's not the point here. Riley began his head coaching career as an interim head coach for the Lakers in 1981. He would win 4 NBA titles with LA from 1982 to 1988 before stepping down in 1990. Let's come back to Pat Riley in his home state, the New York Knicks head coach. Pat came back home in 1991 as the coach of the New York Knicks. The Knicks ran up against MJ and the Bulls in 92 and lost in 7. And in 93 and lost to Chicago in 6. In 1994, with Michael Jordan retired for the first of 3 times, the Knicks got past Chicago in 7 games en route to the NBA Finals to play Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon, Clyde Drexler, and the rest of the Houston Rockets. After going up 3 games to 2, the Knicks lost Game 6, 86-84, with the last play being Olajuwon blocking a John Starks 3. And in Game 7, which in hindsight leads to the beginning of the end of Riley and the Knicks lost to the Rockets in Houston 90-84, in a game where John Starks very notably goes 2 for 18 from the field. This weighed on the franchise and Pat Riley heavily going into the next season. In 2 separate instances in December, Riley got into it with 2 different guards on the team, one being veteran Doc Rivers, yes, that Doc Rivers, who ended up asking for his release from the team shortly afterwards, and the other being with none other than the aforementioned John Starks. Starks and Patrick Ewing got into it after a loss in Atlanta. This is a game in which Starks felt frozen out of the offense for some time. This was also in the midst of a 5-game losing streak, which was the longest losing streak of Pat Riley's tenure in New York. After this game in Atlanta, Riley laid out into Starks, quote, "Who are you to ever question anyone's shot selection?" This was in response to Starks and Ewing going at it when Ewing seemingly froze Starks out of the offense and didn't pass to him a couple times in the game. Now, obviously losing in the NBA Finals just the season before was going to sting everyone involved, but he laid into the second best player on the team, the second best player of his team that had just played in the NBA Finals. A series that the Knicks have only seen once since then, and not in this millennia. Now, during this, it turns out Pat Riley, with hindsight in mind, was already thinking about leaving. Now, this was in December of 1994, early December 1994. Now, later on in that month of that same year, the turn of the year from 94 to go into 95, the Knicks played a game in Minnesota on December 30th. They did not have their next game until January 4th, the following Wednesday, which ended up being a game against the same Hawks team that caused the streaming match less than a month earlier. During the time off, from December 30th until January 4th, Riley flew to Aspen in Colorado, to talk to friends and admit that he wasn't sure his time in New York was meant to last. One of his friends was a wealthy real estate developer that responded to Riley saying he was planning on buying the Miami Heat, and Riley would consider coaching down there. What's crazy about this is that after the Knicks had this 5-game losing streak earlier in the month, which included the screaming match after the Hawks game, they were in the midst of an 8-game win streak and went on a 17-2 run from December 27th until February 3rd. They lost once in the whole month of January. Twice in the whole month of January. Riley had 1 year left on his deal after the current season, and an extension had already been offered to him. He was already at the time the highest paid coach in the NBA at $1.5 million a year. Now he got back from the trip and asked more from New York, more on top of his current extension that was being offered. He wanted a promotion to team president and a percentage ownership stake, which was proposed to partly relieve some of Riley's concerns about New York's frequent ownership changes. This is worth noting. The majority owner of the Knicks at the time was ITT Corporation, and the chief executive was Rand Erskog. Diving into Erskog's history, I'll make this quick. The company has sold off many of its assets, the company is an ITT Corp, and divested, aka disposed of, a lot of their other ventures. The company itself even split into 3 separate companies while owning the Knicks, and which they ended up being the majority owner of only from 1994 until 1996. And just to put the Knicks ownership history and the constant changing in perspective, From the time Pat Riley started coaching overall in 1979 to the time the Dolans and Cablevision started their reign in 1997. The Knicks had Gulf Western own them from 1977 till 88. The Paramount Communications from 1989 to 93. ITT and Cablevision owned them with an 85 to 15% split from 94 to 96. And Cablevision and the Dolans owned them outright in 1997. So from 1988 until 1997, they had 4 owners. That's a lot. That's a lot of ownership changes in such a short amount of time. While it might have been a question on Riley's part anticipating a no answer to the team presidency and ownership, and it might have just been a fake on his part to try to get a rationale in his own mind to get out of there, it is worth noting in hindsight that the decision was up to a historically cost-cutting chief executive in Erskog, and the company he represented didn't even own the Knicks less than 2 seasons later. Not only that, but the branch of ITT Corp that did own the Knicks was acquired by Starwood Hotels and Resorts Worldwide Inc. in 1998. As in 2 years after they sold the Knicks, they were bought out by someone else. Imagine someone buying the Dolans right now. How crazy that would be since they own MSG. Unheard of. Unbelievable. Now back to the Miami part. Dick Butera, who was Riley's friend that actually originally said he would buy the Heat before not buying the Heat on that trip to Aspen in early 95. He was looking to buy them, and it didn't happen. The person that did buy them, who you might know still, Mickey Arison, and Carnival Cruise Lines. A man who actually grew up a Knicks fan. Now, Riley ended up being so mad after the Knicks lost to the Pacers in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Semis of 1995 that he called Butera from the team bus with everyone on the bus to say he was done in New York, which is insane to think of in hindsight. But that does seem relatable to any person that says things at their worst, most vulnerable, or most agitated of times. The list of things he ended up demanding from Arison with using Butera as the middleman, it kind of came off as there's no way he's going to say yes to all of this. It almost seems like it was fake, if you really think about it. Listen to all of these things he ended up asking for. First off, remember, he's the highest paid coach in the NBA currently at $1.5 million a year. He asked for 10 years, $50 million, aka $5 million a year. He was asking for a 333% raise. This is just the beginning of the demands he asked for. He actually ended up only getting 5 years, $15 million a year, which is only $3 million a year, but this did still double his salary. And these numbers actually matched what the Knicks had ended up offering him and the extension that he was anticipated to take from New York. But the Knicks are not going to match any of the following things that he asked for. He asked for team presidency and total control of basketball operations. Got that. He wanted immediate 10% ownership of the team and an additional 10% acquired over the course of his deal. Currently, Pat Riley owns 20% of the Miami Heat. He asked for a loan to cover the interest payments, the original 10%, so he didn't have to pay the interest off immediately. He asked for Arison to purchase his homes in both New York and LA, so he didn't have to worry about going through the selling process, which for anyone that sold a home, not fun. He asked for a limo and a credit card with a $300 per diem, which the $300 per day doesn't seem nearly as much as anything else has been asked for. In hindsight, would you take any of these offers? Let us know. And just so you know who should be really mad about Pat Riley's existence and who Pat the Rat is really a rat to, it's the Van Gundys. When Riley officially decided to take the Miami job, after the majority of his demands had been accepted, he had Jeff Van Gundy, an assistant coach of his at the time, sneak out his stuff out of the office before telling all the other assistants the next day of his decision. Then, after Riley had become a coach and was the coach of the Miami Heat from 1995 season all the way up until 2002-2003, a season that he ended at 25-57, terribly, he promoted Stan Van Gundy from assistant to head coach for the 2003-2004 season. Van Gundy went 42-40, and then he went 59-23 and made the conference finals in just his second season. Then Van Gundy started his third season 11-10, and Riley forced him out. It reported that Van Gundy wanted time for his family, but Riley forced him out. That same season, Pat Riley, led by Dwayne Wade, won the NBA Finals. Which, in hindsight, as a Knicks fan, I'm really not sure I would actually be that mad about Pat Riley leaving. He basically asked for the world and then some from a very desperate new owner and got it all. He's now a 20% owner of a team that he never would have got a yes to in New York. Definitely not at that time anyway. If anything, I'm way more pissed at Rand Erskog and the ITT Corporation, which isn't really a thing anymore. I think it's Hartford Financial something. It's not even the same business. I blame them for being in charge in what was a very pivotal moment in Knicks history. But if I'm Jeff or Stan Van Gundy, I probably hate that guy. Let me know what you think in the comments. Did I get any facts wrong? If someone you hated offered you a 100% raise and 20% ownership stake, would you take the job from them? Or would you stay true to your fandom from childhood? Let me know.